Good morning, everyone. It's Tim O'Connor and William Van Helmond. This is another episode of Coffee and Freedom. And look, seem to have plenty of coffee, even though occasionally my local store's out. The supply chains are being interrupted. It's a little bit annoying, but we are working on freedom, right?
That is correct. Good morning,
How you
everyone.
been? Anyways, so check this out, guys. It's Hilltoppers, Flatlanders, and guys out on the shore of the Great Lakes. Kevin Wilson just pops into the room, man. Thank you very much, brother. How you doing?
Fantastic. Good morning.
So Kevin and I do a show, an actual live, real radio show. We got to get William Van Helmond on there once in a while. William's from Jamestown, down on the Flatlands of Long Island, and he's making things happen down there. He ran a little write-in case down there. Say that again. William, see, you know what? I'm telling you, every single time we go live with William, Spectrum quashes his voice, man. They just literally.
Are they trying to silence you, William?
Every single time. It starts.
We were talking just before, and there was no static, and we went live. Maybe it's the going live thing. I mean, I don't get it, but it's definitely not Suffolk. It's definitely not me. It never is. It's always just let's get the
It could be the hilltop reception. I don't know. Oh, look at this. Angelo for Liberty popping in this morning. Good morning, brother. How you doing? He was on this show last week before?
Week before, I think, yeah.
So one of the things William and I want to talk about, and Kevin, we want to loop you in on this. I met a guy at the Empire State Freedom Summit. His name is Jonathan Howe, and he has committed to running for Congress against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. What do you think? What are his chances of beating her?
That's going to be an uphill battle for him.
It is. She's very popular, very, very popular. But I will tell you this. One of the things I like when it comes to libertarian candidates is that sometimes, most of the time, a lot of them have a great sense of humor. And Jonathan Howe is going to come on this show next week. And he's going to show you guys what he's all about. He's absolutely hilarious. So, Kevin, you ran for Congress. What do you think about the effort that's needed to go into that gig?
Yeah, well, I got clobbered, but it's all right. That's what happens with a lot of libertarian candidates. I'll tell you this. So, AOC, when she won, she was the underdog by a lot. She beat a longtime incumbent in that race, and she won because, frankly, regardless of her ideology, she put in the work. Right? She did a great door knocking campaign, organized well, and was able to beat a politician who thought that he was safe. Jonathan could do the same thing. It's going to take a lot of effort, a big team, and enough of a well-organized strategy that it's possible. Now, I didn't find that strategy. My goal is, between having a handful of media connection, getting some earned media, trying to get into the debates. But of course, any debate that I was invited to, the Republican wouldn't go to. So, because I was invited to one of them. But the Republican wouldn't show up to one that I was in, and then the incumbent wasn't going to show up to a debate with just me. And then the other one, you had to have raised enough money to get in. The Republican bought his way, and the Democrat was a shoo-in because he's Joe Morelli's a well known and well funded guy. But that is what it is. And then enough of, no matter how many people we contact, there's it was not enough to overcome the threshold of both incumbency and complacency with the two-party system. And, as Larry Sharp says, he wanted to break a hole. My attempt was to go through. I got cut down, but that's how it goes. We just got to keep finding good folks who are willing to put their time and their effort into running a solid campaign, and eventually someone's actually going to get through and make a big splash.
William, you've ran for a couple offices. I've got a funny story too about, and I've shared it before, but I want to hear you. You've ran twice, I think, right?
Yes, I ran for this assembly, and it was an open seat, so I didn't have a very well-known incumbent, and we made a lot of waves on it. But one thing I want to go back to the AOC race with Jonathan Howe. That woman is going to bring a phenomenal amount of media around her, no matter what she does and where she might be. And if Jonathan gets around her, debating her or anything with her involvement in it, the Libertarian Party stands to get a lot of exposure, in my opinion, with the amount of media that always seems to follow AOC. But with me, we had no media, and out of the Flatlands here, it was very minimal. But we had Ken Laval in Senate 1. He retired, and the assemblyman, which was oh God, his name eludes me, and I went to school with him. But he stepped up, Palumbo. He stepped up to go for his seat, so he vacated a seat. So it was a three-way race, and we did good because I really knocked on a lot of doors, but it was COVID. But I got about 24,103 pieces of information out in District 2. And I ended up with, I got clobbered, but I ended up getting over 1,200 votes with the final count and the write-ins. And there was only 73 registered libertarians in my district. So, that shows that, society evolves, government needs to evolve, and the political party system is starting to evolve. I think if you're either one of the duopoly, you cannot be happy with your party at all, regardless of what your feelings are or your in-depthness towards them. If I was a Republican or I was a Democrat, I'd be embarrassed right now. And, that's what makes third parties look so good. And I know Tim knows, and maybe I'll share this with Kevin, but I formed with my committee in Suffolk here, I'm the chair, we formed a third party coalition. I don't know if you can see the banner behind me, but we have the Green Party, the Sam Party, and the Independent Party. Now we're working together on trying to create a voting bloc large enough to compete in some of the towns in Suffolk County where we can actually get Libertarian in office. You can't do it on our own line because the numbers aren't strong enough to put one in unless you do what I do and really work the streets hard and get other third parties and other people that through your sphere of influence to vote for you. Because they have confidence in you. And sometimes new people running, that's hard to establish. I've been in business over 40 years, 4 decades in my area. So whether you like me or not, you know me. So I have name recognition. And, that's very important in campaigning. So, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Kevin. I do watch your shows from time to time, and you're doing a great job with Tim. And maybe one day you can get a Flatlander up there in the Hilltops. What do you think?
Yeah, why not?
Kevin's all the way out on the shores of the Great Lakes, man. He's out in Rochester, so he's from my perspective, he is also a Flatlander, but just a different end of the state kind of flatland.
Up here, Finger Lakes. So, no, that's great. And actually, I want to ask a follow-up question. With that, your coalition, is your goal to elect folks like town councils, things like that, to start to get some of those local seats, county ledge, things like that?
Yes. Yeah,
right
and
on.
actually, we actually have Kevin, trustees out here where you can win a trustee seat, with like 400 or 500 votes. So we tried targeting that with people that had libertarian values when we did the screening, but unfortunately we lost the ballot access unconstitutionally. So, but we had geared ourselves and set ourselves up in that capacity. But we're also now looking, and the state LP is looking at, winning or entering the school board races. Although they might not be paid, but getting, registered libertarians that have actual ethics and no vested interest and principles. Wow. What about those 3 items? Being an elected official working for the people. How about that? That's not a new concept, but I think a concept that's long been forgotten. And I think it's a good move to win some of the smaller races, Kevin and Tim, where then, as they have shown success in those races, they can run for a bigger position. And I think that's how the Libertarian Party itself and other third parties could infiltrate and bring back principles and ethics into government at the higher levels.
Love it.
Yeah, principles and ethics. That's a rare commodity in this
Yeah.
day and age, as far as I'm concerned. So, my own race, I ran for New York State Senate in an open seat. I thought it was a unique opportunity to get libertarian faces out there. Larry Sharp breached. I followed. I think it was a good move. But what happened to me was I did all the work of getting all the signatures and names and stuff like that. They invalidated my petitions based on the fact that I wrote the mailing address that I've used for 20 years as my address on the bottom of the petitions. They invalidated my petitions because I did not know my own address according to the Board of Elections. And so I was unable to, it should be a simple fix, right? Just go up and just change the word from Maryland to Milford because I voted in Milford and that's what they were looking for. And they're like, I get up there and I ask them if I could just write it on there. They're like, well, of course not, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, they're like, even if you had wrote Milford anywhere on the petition, we would have accepted it. And I'm like, well, accept it. I'm here. And they're like, no. And then they gave me this like $75 book. They're like, next time, use this book and you will have much better success. And I'm like, well, that didn't stop me from running, as you know, Kevin. I ran. And I ran as a write-in. I made a lot of noise. I think I got about 2,500 votes. It's hard to count because I knew there was no sense in bothering every Board of Elections saying, hey, count my votes, right? Like, so I did all the work. I had a lot of fun. I had some events. I went places where there were people. Larry Sharp and I went about 8, 9 places together. And just did live events and talked about possible solutions. And so no matter what, I had an absolute blast running. It's been this lifetime dream of mine to be like a radio host and to actually have people listen to me. And so now I'm forcing my way into that realm. But it was fun, guys. I'll tell you what, it was fun. And it gave me an opportunity to meet wonderful people like William and Kevin and stuff like that. And guys like Jonathan Howe and going to the LPNY Freedom Summit. All of these things have been one of the interesting phases of my life. I don't know how, like, it was a great year to campaign on the internet because everybody was locked in their houses anyway.
That's true.
So what do you think? Like, do you think Jonathan, I had actually got lucky with the media coverage. So check this out. They call me, our local newspaper calls me out of the blue and they want my opinions on things, and it was like man on the street and they were going to give this person a quarter page. And for some reason they picked me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm so profoundly popular in my local area, but I don't know. I might be exaggerating there, but they picked me, and so during that interview, I announced that I was running for Senate. So I got this quarter-page ad, basically free, about my views about how Trump was a problem and Biden's going to be worse, and no matter what, like they're like, "Who are you going to vote for?" I'm like, "I ain't voting for either one of those guys. Are you kidding me? I'm going to vote for a libertarian. I don't care who it is, right?" And then Joe came along, and I did vote for Joe, and like the person interviewing me couldn't quite get their brain around it. They wanted to force me into who would you vote for if it was just Joe Biden or Donald Trump? And I'm like, well, maybe I wouldn't even vote. Like at that point, doesn't even make sense, does it? And I probably said I would probably vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden because he's exposed certain aspects of an emotionality in our society, certain aspects about the media that I enjoy. And there were things that he said that just made me laugh. So, like, I don't know.
Tim, you got to pull the Gary Johnson thing because people would always ask him, "Oh, okay, but Gary, like, what gun to your head? Are you gonna vote for Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton?" He was just like, "Pull the trigger."
Yeah, that would have been a good answer. Now they didn't quite phrase it that way, or I would have got it. And so then also, my Republican challenger, I got invited to a serious debate at Cornell and the policy for government at Cornell. And my Republican challenger ducked that debate. My Democratic challenger did not duck me at all. He did. We did a debate, which, guys, it was more like a town hall. And it was a very friendly conversation. I thought he was a nice guy. Excuse me. Everything he said was, well, what we should do is tax Wall Street, and what we should do is tax this guy, and what we should do is tax that guy. And I'm kind of like, we're going to chase people out of the state, but we're already doing that. So I guess that's the plan, like he was a big fan of that transaction tax on Wall Street. I don't know if you guys realize that, but then you start seeing all the news about how all these investment funds and these investors are splitting their operations now with Florida and Texas and like Tennessee. They're moving to Tennessee, and it's like, do you guys not see what's going on here? Because the second you implement this transaction tax, they're going the rest of the way. They're done in New York. They're out of here. What do you guys think about that? So I made it. I made a little bit of hay. I made a lot of noise. I made some friends. So I don't know. It was fun. Not sure if I could do it again though. It's a lot of stress.
That's what it is. No, that's all, you know, like best you can hope for in these situations. Sometimes like you make an impact and you lay the ground for either you to run again or the next person to run again. And you know, maybe they go a bit further. Maybe they win.
That would be very interesting. And maybe they come in second. Like Larry's even like, look, I'll run as anything. What if me as a libertarian comes in second? Wouldn't that be pretty impressive? And I think that it would be. And like, what if Jonathan Howe, like no one else runs? So it's Jonathan Howe versus AOC. They literally kind of almost have to offer him some sort of media coverage, don't they?
Oh no, they don't have to offer squat, but
I know they don't have to at all. Oh my God, they don't have to offer him anything. They can ignore him.
yeah,
If he has a lot of money to spend, they won't ignore him. He's a public defender. I don't know about having a lot of money, but
yeah. So I'll tell you this about media coverage. Like we can't take for granted that like we are not entitled to any media coverage whatsoever, right? Like the media doesn't have to cover us. What they want to do is they want something that's interesting enough to get clicks and to get views, so that like, you know, their advertiser are happy, right? Like that's part of it. Or, you know, like if it's a nonprofit station or like an NPR affiliate, you know, you just got to be interesting enough and like credible enough where their listeners want to engage in that discussion. Listen, I get invited to the local NPR show here in Rochester like 3 times a year. They like having me on.
that's great.
You know, and you know, the other media coverage that they basically said, look, Kevin, you do something interesting enough, I'll have you on. You know, or we'll show up to your event. But like, you can't just call a million random press conferences and expect us to show up. You know, you're not entitled to that. Like, we have to have a reason to be there and for our listeners to want to see what you're doing.
I think that's
I agree with that, Kevin. If I
yeah.
can-
Jump in. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. I started talking as I always.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to jump on it, but I agree with Kevin's saying, because I have a local NPR station on the South Fork. I'm on the North Fork. And we did a volunteerism program where we did a food drive last winter. And we hooked up with this place called Helping Hands. And you know, I started putting it on my Facebook. And you know, the media locally is smaller media outlets like we have here in the Flatlands, as Tim calls it, and even in his area. They'll pick up on that. They'll have people looking once in a while. I actually got a call from them, and they actually interviewed me on what we were doing and why we were doing it. And, you know, I got to emphasize that, you know, we believe in helping others. You know, we don't worry about whether you're a libertarian or not. If there's a need out there, we want to fill it. That's why we're the party of principles. Got to talk a lot about it. And I did several interviews with them. But if I can go back, we were talking about the Board of Election with your address. The Board of Election should be eliminated. They are a nightmare. In my opinion. But one way to fix that is that we have 62 Board of Elections in the 62 counties of New York State. And if you have a registered party or organized party in any county, you should have a commissioner in the Board of Elections. That's the only way to make it where it's a fair playing field, getting information, finding out what's going on, and in the petition process, as well as when people are voting. How many times has a libertarian gone in and had a question about the ballot, and they ask you, who do you need, a Democrat or a Republican? Because only the top two vote getters in the last governor's race get that. And I said, I'd like a libertarian. And they're like, well, we don't have one. I said to them, I'll wait. Go get one. You know, and they don't like that. But the thing is, I said, by the way, I happen to be the county chairman, so I'll answer the question for you. How's that sound? But you have to be bold, and you have to stick your foot in people's mouths to get things done, because that system is so corrupt, and they control it. Patronage jobs, and they usually go to town committee chairs, because I know all of them in Suffolk County are in the BOE, at least on the Republican line. Can't speak for the Democrats, but and one other thing, Tom, you know, I'm very bring it up, and I talk about it every show.
Tim.
And
It's
Kevin might
Tim,
be part of
William.
this.
It's Tim.
We all have the face for radio. You know what I mean? So we're good. But when we run, Tom, like, you ran and Kevin has run, and I have ran on some decent state levels. The thing is, you kind of create what I call a snowplow effect, because you're opening up the ideology to people that may not have ever heard it before. So when the next guy comes knocking on the door running for a race in the near future or down the road, that person already has recognition of the party. And I think that's very significant. So, we plow a road, just the center of the street. The next guy will open up the road, and then we will get people to get to the doorways, and those people will become viable, respected, and faithful voters for the Libertarian Party. I think that's how it works. It takes time, and with ballot access, we can certainly create that. And and we're growing in the state. We're the third largest party in the country, and it does work in others. We have 355 elected officials now in the country, and we grew 120 or so this past election. We're growing. Everybody else is shrinking. So that's something to look at. And I mention that to people when I talk to them. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I do think that the recognition, like that, it's a long game. I was going to say long con, but like that's just because it's politics, right? But it's a long game, no matter what, until we become accepted. But I do want to point out that throughout history, right, things have changed drastically. Parties have changed drastically, and one of the ways that party changed was like this group of people love the state and the state power, and this group of people apparently does not and wants to stand against practically everything that the state stands for. And so I see similar parallels to our society, to history, where perhaps people are waking up to the fact that all of the government solutions are not necessarily solutions, and that they have a lot of unintended consequences that limit economic activity, that really, guys, we go through these periods of news cycles where everything is divisive. We see how they divide us. That's how they rule us. And that part of it drives me absolutely crazy. I don't know. I get on rants. I know I get repetitive, but that one is going to keep coming back over and over again. We see how they divide us. That's how they rule us. And we need to fix that. And one way to fix it, crazy guys like us and girls, guys. Diane Sayre was on last week. We've had Teresa Gossard out in Tompkins County. There is people that are pushing for liberty. Like we've got to keep doing it, right? We've got to say the state got to slow down. You got to stop. We're not trying to do away with the state. I don't know, but for the most part, we're not. Yeah.
Tim, you realize that all the duopoly has ever done is offered band-aids to create solutions, or so to say, and they only blame each other for all that's wrong. They've been in control for over 150 years. And we have an important birthday coming up on the 11th of December. The Libertarian Party of our country turns 50. So we are still a very young, organization politically. It becomes like the old standard Yankees that always seem to win the World Series versus like where I'm from, the Mets. Well, I've won a few, but the Mets have become a better team because they have principles and ethics where the Yankees have not, because they only create problems. And I like the other thing
that was great
about brainwashing, because everything is this or that. But when you watch TV and things, I've noticed that you get a choice. You either choose Coke or Pepsi, or how about Lowe's and Home Depot, or how about Republican and Democrats? It's how you get conditioned in programming on TV on one or the other. I personally happen to like Royal Crown or RC Cola, and that's why I'm a libertarian.
Hold up. Look right here. That was one of the analogies I drew all the time when I was campaigning. I'm like, Coke versus Pepsi. They used to fight back in the 80s deliberately, right? They oh, Coke sucks. Oh, Pepsi sucks. And they're just, all the while, they're crapping on RC Cola. And I'm just like, I'm freaking RC Cola, man. That's it. It tastes better. It's sweeter. It doesn't hurt my gut as much. I'm RC Cola. That's it. Let's give it a little shout out to our buddy Ryan Bedford. Ryan Bedford just organized, guys, Rensselaer County into he's working on making it an official concert. I don't even know the words, but brother, what you're doing is important. He put together a big, huge event for Larry Sharp. As my understanding right now, he's number 2. I was number 1 for putting people together in a room for Larry Sharp. So that, guys, that kind of work is so incredibly important, and that is where the most fun is. Like, we had this big event with Queeter and Spike and everything right in Oneonta. Like 50 people showed up. My mom, who pretty much hates politics, loves Trump, came down and listened to Thomas Daniel Queeter talk, and that is a big, huge victory for us. Big, huge victory. We got some Rich Bertel's out here. Okay, let's see what he's got. Rich been on this show. Rich and I, he comes on the radio show pretty regularly. Rich ran also for I think out in Owego, ran for county councilman, right? District 3 in Appalachian. And got like 25% of the votes, over a couple hundred votes, did a great job. The irony is that the Libertarian Party of New York can pull off what Pennsylvania did this year if we don't have ballot access. See what designated petitions are turned in March. Okay, guys, Rich is smarter than me. I can't even read what he's saying here. All right. The irony is that the Libertarian Party of New York can pull off what PA did this year if we don't have ballot access. The designated petitions are turned in March, but then you can petition afterwards, is I think what he's saying. You can petition afterwards and find those uncontested seats, or better yet, open seats, and petition for them. We lost William. I'm telling you, that Long Island Spectrum is out to get that guy. It happens all the time. So Rich is going to bring this to the state executive committee meeting. I think that's a good idea. I think it's a great strategy. And so, are you familiar with the I think it's called the Molman strategy and what he pulled off in Pennsylvania, Kevin?
I've been following a little bit what's going on in Pennsylvania, and I saw that they were running a ton of people for a ton of different offices and finding different. I don't know. I didn't know it's called the Molman strategy, but
somebody gave him credit for it, so I'm willing to call it the Molman strategy. What they did was find 150, 200 uncontested seats in Pennsylvania, and they managed to get like 115 people in office, auditors, right? All auditors. What would be better than having libertarian auditors keeping an eye on things going on in government? I think it would be great.
Yeah. Well, so like, as I understand the strategy and all this stuff too, is right. What you need to do, like what the county affiliates need to do, is you need to find a bunch of people who are willing to run for kind of those low level offices and say, okay, we know that the Republicans, Democrats, and other parties are going to be filing their petitions at this time. You got to be prepared to jump into any number of a couple of races and have your team organized and prepared to get you on the ballot for any number of races based on what is most winnable, based on who files. And then you got to go and get those signatures in the loveliest time of year of March, which at least for Rochester is like probably one of the snowiest months. But
yeah, right.
It's rough going door to door. Back in the old days of like summertime petitioning, like I would just show up to like public markets and festivals and whatnot, stand outside of them, collect signatures in July, and that was still a grind, but at least it was warm out. But now you're gonna have to. It is doable. In some of these races, the independent nominating petitions, which is what the LP would have to circulate in order to get on the ballot. But for some of these like village trustees, town council, county ledge, it's only a couple hundred signatures. It's doable. And if you are serious about winning a race and you have the resources to win a race, hey, you can pull it off. So I think it's a great idea. You just got to find the people who are willing to say, okay, I'm either going to run for county ledge or village trustee or whatever. And
I've had people reach out to me about that stuff, even as far as running for a local city mayor, which I don't actually live in that city, so it would have been impossible, right? But I'll be honest, at 55, I'm like, I go to town meetings occasionally, and I don't ever get upset with what they're doing. These people are basically volunteers shuffling papers on behalf of your community. I I I don't know. Like, do I want to go there and just start yelling about libertarianism and stuff? I don't know. Like,
All right, so okay, I'm gonna make my pitch for like why you should get involved with it. And you don't even
Do
need
it.
to run for town council or whatever. Like, if you can get on the zoning board, that's when that's where half that the ridiculous stuff at the local level happens. And I know it's more ridiculous in Rochester, but like
Yeah.
sometimes, and actually, good friends of mine like are trying to do things like, hey, I want to take this empty vacant building that's been like decrepit for years, build it up, turn half of it into apartments, turn half of it into a business, and the city will be like, yeah, well, that's zoned R1, and so like technically you're not even allowed to have an apartment there, and so you're gonna need to like ask the city to either rezone the property or go to the zoning board of appeals and do this. And people in the neighborhood are like, well, it's an empty building, like it used to be, like, a crack house before this. Like, just let him fix up the property.
I
Just let
know,
him do
brother.
the thing.
Oh my
And
God.
or like in my neighborhood, like there's someone who wanted to build a garage, and they're like, now technically it's zoned R1, and they're like, it can't be a house, it can't be a single family home, it's a garage. Like you'd have to tear down the whole thing. Let him turn it into a garage. He already has a business next door. Let him do it.
Yeah, listen, this is great that you're on this subject because this broaches something that the LP Otsego County wants to start talking about. Oneonta, New York has a history of using zoning to supposedly improve the quality of life in our community, and yet all this it has done is blown open this hole for landlords who will now only rent to students or rent their property to Airbnb because that's the only place that they've destroyed the affordable housing market where people can rent something. The government has destroyed it, right? So they you can't even like rent out a room. You can't have a two-family house. You can't have more than 3 unrelated individuals living in an apartment. So now it's like landlords are like, well, we ain't renting nobody until we get this much money.
There's so many laws like that in so many
Oh my
towns.
God.
Like, yeah, you can't have 3 unrelated people living together. And it's like, man, that just destroys any opportunity for an actual rental market to emerge. So yeah, you're
I
gonna do short-term
agree.
rentals because that's the only way you can make it profitable.
Bro, and then they did away with dual use, right? So like and then after they did away with dual use, they allowed it back in. Like they said, okay, well, doctors and accountants and lawyers can dual use their homes. They can have an office in their house. But like doctors, lawyers, and accountants apparently don't need car mechanics in their neighborhood to fix their freaking cars. Okay. So like when you have to go to Walmart to get your car fixed, or Pep Boys, or drive to Binghamton, or spend $125 an hour, and you have to leave your neighborhood to do it, guys, that's why. Okay, this dual use thing, beating up on people that are all the things that are zoned against, right? A machinist, a plants repair place, mechanics, anything you can imagine, except for doctors, lawyers, and accountants. They all can have this thing because it's economic discrimination. Okay, it's absolutely nonsense. And so, sure, would it be difficult to effectively regulate some of these home office things, like a welder in your neighborhood? Would that be a problem? Maybe. Okay, but I think that we could do it, and I think that we should, and I think that we lose this whole this neighborhood craftsman thing by zoning ourselves out of it. And we've contributed to how expensive prices are these days. Like contractors like Jimmy Dayton getting $7,500 an hour is because you don't let them have an office in their home. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. How's it going?
Good, man. Thank you for jumping
Good.
on. I appreciate it. So I don't know how much you've watched, or we've been talking about zoning. We've been talking about running effective local races. Of course, the aim of the show is to celebrate people that are being proactive in pursuit of liberty. First of all, I know you were at the LPNY Freedom Summit with me. What else have you been doing?
Well, on my own individual liberty, I've moved into another place.
Nice.
Still same area, but so yeah, I've been a little busy this weekend already, and got plenty more to do. So
Great. So guys, I'm going to put this one out there too, and I want to do a little advertising. Like today, I am going to a cornhole tournament. Okay, and here's why. A friend of mine had an aneurysm. 45-year-old lady, 2 teenage boys had an aneurysm. And so one of the things that we can do, guys, even as libertarians, even as human beings, is just go to these local events. This weekend, it's a cornhole tournament to raise money for a friend. Next weekend, like the local firehouse wants to sell some roast beef dinners. I think I'm probably going to take advantage of all that stuff. You guys, like, what do you think about doing stuff like that?
That's awesome. Me and Thomas Queter are trying to raise money right now for a guy down in Waverly. I went down there with Thomas and we figured out all the materials and the cost that it would take to fix up his house so it's more accessible for him. He needs a lot of work. He already got a lot of the material from before he ended up losing his leg over medical issues. And yeah, so we're in the beginning of that, trying to raise money for that.
I think that volunteerism is one of the ways to go. Like these small events, money raises itself sometimes. And I was telling Chris Olinsky, you guys probably know Chris, about how I started a golf tournament about 11 years ago, 12 years ago. The first year right out of the gate, and it was for the Family Service Association. And guys, you'll hear me talk about my mom. My mom was the director of the Family Service Association in Oneonta. It's a local charity. It gets some money from the United Way and things like that. But I started this golf tournament. My mom retired. I stopped running it. But guess what? The golf tournament is still going. It's raising as much money as it ever did. And it's just a fantastic, I just feel so blessed to have been a part of it and to think of the idea. You know what I mean? And it was easy, man. Like they put it all together for me. I just said, "Hey, let's do a golf tournament." And they're like, "All right, Tim, you're in charge." And then they would send out all the letters. They would do all of this stuff, and it was great. So Emmy, check this out. I know we missed you down in Oneonta for that Creator fundraiser, but I forgive you for not coming to Oneonta. You could totally crash at my house if you wanted to, but okay, you got to go wherever. I think William is definitely. I don't know what's going on with his internet, but guys, forgive me for that. All right, like we're trying to figure this stuff out. Kevin and I are technological wizards on this stuff, though, right, Kevin?
Oh yeah. We totally got figured out. Got down.
So shout out to Rich Bertel for joining us. He had to send a Binghamton Press 4 years ago. Home office restrictions are the most egregious form of zoning. And if you guys know Eric Cooper, he's up your way, Kevin. He also he actually works for zoning. Like he's a zoning officer in a town up near in Canandaigua.
So he was in Canandaigua.
Okay.
He got another job out in like Niagara County, I think. But like, yeah, he was advising my campaign on like, kind of federal policy related to like housing issues, because there's a lot of talk about like changing the incentives for like federal funds, which kind of encourage single-use zoning and those restrictive zoning policies that you talked about. And there's some discussion actually from Dr. Ben Carson talking about changing those incentives initially to change them around. So like at least the federal government wouldn't say like, we're going to make you like design your cities in a certain way and restrict businesses in a certain way. But Rich is really great. Like on zoning issues, like I love listening to what Rich has to say, and you should follow him for that alone.
Honestly, Rich is one of the most proactive libertarians that I've had the pleasure of meeting. He is constantly crafting new ideas, actively outreach. Like it's a big deal what he does, and I think it gets a little bit undersold, but I don't see all the effort that we make is valid. Like Emmy helping Queter get around the state and coming to all the things that he's doing. These things are incredibly important, and all the hands that we have on the wheel, the easier it gets. But Rich is always reaching out and looking for the same thing that William, who had to drop off, and this is his comment. William had to drop off, but the same, forming coalitions with people who want more freedom. But as I've said in the past, and this is another one I'm going to repeat pretty often, medical freedom is an area where we can collaborate, right? But that's still not enough freedom for me. Like we still have lost too much freedom, and we allow issues to divide us, and that's one of the problems that we've got. So the Libertarian Party forming coalitions, I love it. So this is William having difficulties again. If you can share this, the Suffolk County, the zoning planning board and an ARB board as well as the IDA are all appointed by the town board. Are not even elected officials. So you can see all the corruption behind them and why things occur. And they utilize the code enforcement to enforce.
Yeah.
I thought,
So
yeah, go ahead, bud, please.
no, I say like a lot of times that is true, right? Like it, but here's the thing: at the local level, like your town board members, like a lot of them aren't like. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're like they're party loyalists and whatever. But some of them are going to be like just reasonable folks who want to do well by your town, right? And if you can find those reasonable folks and you can convince them that you are also a reasonable person who's just trying to do what's in the best interest of the town, sometimes you can get on those zoning boards. If you're involved in like your neighborhood organizations, and that's happened here in the Monroe County Libertarians too. Andrew Hollister was put on a planning commission at the county level because after the county ledge folks hearing him talk about local issues and wanting to see some accountability at that level, they put him on. He was able to get through. Now he was a complete pain in the butt while he was there because he kept questioning the priorities of the party that put him there. So it didn't exactly last forever because he's like, hey, wait, why are we spending money here and why are we spending money here and does it make sense to do stuff here? And they're like, oh well, enough of that. But he was able to get there and make a difference and kind of shine light on stuff that probably would have slid through without discussion. In a meeting that most people don't pay attention to, like the county appropriations, for public, projects. So like sewer lines, water lines, stuff like that. Oh no, I can't hear audio now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Emmy. Can't hear Tim.
Tim, are you muted?
Tim, you're just saying that you are a technological wizard.
I am. I did that on purpose.
There we go.
That was to get audience engagement. I wanted people to tell me that I'm muted. Therefore, that's why I did it. It was completely on purpose. It wasn't. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. All right.
All right, so yeah, apparently it was going through somewhere, but I was like, all right, I'm going to use my magic wand here, and
the worst part about it, I was muted and on another screen trying to gather some information to share, so I didn't even know that you guys were trying to go, hey, Tim, you're muted. So, Amy, what do you got going on this weekend? What are you up to?
Well, we've got there's a Moms for Liberty meeting tonight, actually. I'll be going to the whole coalition building thing.
Yeah, I love it.
During the day today, I'll be moving more crap.
Yeah, I have a situation where I'm gonna have to move a bunch of stuff coming up soon. It's like one of my least favorite things to do in the world. So Check this out, guys. Larry Sharp going to be in Suffolk on the 18th of November, 7 to 9 at the Huntington Moose Lodge in Green Lawn, Suffolk County, New York. And that's from our buddy William Van Helmond, as near as I can tell. I have posted, this is the link to Russell Jordan's fundraiser donor box. This is the guy you were talking about with Queter, right? Trying to help him out?
Yep.
All right. And then I posted one. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep cutting you off.
No, thanks for sharing that.
Be more aggressive, Jimmy. You let me steamroll you all the time. Every time we get hanging out, you got to speak up. It's your fault. And then we got this one, a GoFundMe for the Thayer boys, which I'm going to be going to a cornhole tournament on their behalf. So I guess let's we're coming up on 44 minutes. Holy cow, time flies when you're having fun. So check this out, guys. This is a ruling from the Fifth Circuit Court about the vaccine mandates. And I thought it was like I'm against the mandates, right? And Kevin is pro-vaccine, and I think all of that is cool, right? We can agree. But this ruling, I kind of want to run down through it because I find it to be, in a way, hilarious, right? So the Fifth Circuit says they're, some guys celebrating that they're nuking this thing. I don't know that they're nuking it, but so at the same time, the mandate is also under inclusive. And that's a modern day buzzword, right? Inclusivity, under inclusive. The most vulnerable worker in America draws no protection from the mandate if his company employs 99 workers or fewer. The reason why, because even as OSHA admits, companies of 100 or more employers will be better able to administer and sustain the mandate. OSHA seeks information about the ability of employers with fewer than 100 employees to implement the COVID-19 vaccine and or testing programs. That may be true, but this kind of thinking belies the premise that any of this, and this is going to hurt some people out there, is truly an emergency. Indeed, under-inclusiveness of this sort is often regarded as a telltale sign that the government's interest in enacting a liberty-restraining pronouncement is not, in fact, and I love the quotes, compelling. What do you think about the direction this Fifth Circuit Court is taking here?
Yeah, I think we might have talked about this on a free solution too, but the arbitrary nature of 100 employees is kind of like that signal. This is what it's saying. This is that signal that like, hey, this isn't meant to protect people. They're just they picked a number and they said, well, we think that this number of employees we can force this on and like everything will be okay, right? Like, so like there's no, if they had made a different argument with like, well, these certain industries, these certain employees who have like this level of protection and this level of contact with either the public, like it would have been harder to take down. But in this case, you're like, is it actually an emergency? Like, do we need to go around the normal regulatory process, around the normal constitutional process to enact this type of restriction when you're not even applying it to everybody? You're just applying it to some employees, not all industries, not consistently. So what are we doing here? Why does it make sense to have this OSHA rule? No, it exposes how, well, first of all, how inept the government is at doing these things, but also, how arbitrary it is and how it's not really meant with the best interest of people in mind.
I like the point that they're making about, because I don't think it's been like, sure, okay, like guys, when I talk about COVID and these vaccine mandates and the government really taking this proactive role, I am not trying to belittle, belie, or set aside the actual seriousness of it, whether certain people get really sick from COVID or not. So like, I want to be sensitive about that, but I do want to say that I don't find government mandates to be beneficial. What do you think about that, Amy Liberty?
It's not beneficial. Where did 100 come from? Like, correct. I love that shirt, by the way. Good ideas do not require force.
If it's a good idea, don't force me to do it. I'll get there eventually.
If they spent 10% of the time on trying to, give you good information, not beat around the bush or, just blow it down your throat all the time with these mandates and coercion or bribery, I think people might be more apt to get that vaccine. But they started off in the completely wrong direction, and it turned a lot of people off real fast. I think they're going to be struggling as far as if they really want to get that vaccine out.
They're going to get to where people just say, no, that's it. We don't care about you taking our job. We'll move to someplace else where they won't take our job. The people that have not gotten the vaccine now are reticent. Okay. And the increasing force being applied isn't going to change their mind, I don't think. What do you think, Kevin? I know you're kind of like more like the vaccine is good, which is great, guys. Me and Kevin go back and forth about the vaccine, but not to the point where we come to this, hey, you're a vaccine jerk and I'm a vaccine jerk but there's areas where we discuss. So I'm dumping this in your lap right now, Kevin. What do you say?
Well, it's to quote like a fan of a free solution too, is like Kevin wants to personally inject every single anti-vaxxer himself with the vet. No, it's not.
I don't think that's what he said, but
yeah, I know that's like an exaggerated quote, but like
it might be the guy right there. I'm not sure. Yeah, he said something like
that.
Ryan.
But yeah, no, with like, so the frustrating part about this, again, I generally think that the evidence points to the vaccine being like generally effective and worth the trade-offs, like in the risk, depending on like your health category and status, but it's important for people to come to their own conclusions about this stuff. Right. And what kills me with some of these things is that, like, particularly in the government sector, loyalty to like their previous positions and their inability to like kind of understand like the evolving nature of like the pandemic leads to like some silly conclusions, like where the CDC is still recommending that like vaccinated people have to wear a mask in every and all situations, right? Like in regards to how you feel about masks, like okay, like beginning of the pandemic, maybe that seemed like the best solution we had at the time, and now we're 18 months into this, and like no, that doesn't make sense in every and all situation. It doesn't make sense to have like, you know, kids wear masks all day, every day, including outside sometimes. Like it doesn't make sense for, you know, places like gyms to still have a mask requirement when, you know, they say like, well, we'd rather everyone in here be vaccinated. Okay. You can't set a private vaccine mandate. Only the government can set a vaccine mandate. And even if you do have one, you still have to be masked. And like these rules end up becoming so darn arbitrary. Like it doesn't follow any consistent rhyme or reason. And like we have kind of lost the thread on this. And so that's all I asked for is like, okay, like if we're gonna if vaccines are good, then okay, great. Then take away the mask mandates, because like in a lot of places they're still coming back. Why do we need that stuff? You know, or like what is the threshold? What is the actual threshold of number of people who need to be vaccinated for this to be effective? If we're going to talk about herd immunity, okay, is it 60, 70%? If 70% of people get vaccinated, isn't that good enough? In New York State, that's what we're at. So fine. Like, why do we need the mandates then? That should be pretty darn good. That's going to provide a great level of protection at the the effectiveness of the vaccines that they say is there now. So we don't need those mandates.
Yeah, we got to a place where we stopped talking about herd immunity. We stopped talking about natural immunity. Amy, what do you think? Like, how did we get here? Is it because authoritarians are terrified and easily frightened, so they have to use force?
Yeah, I think they are a little scared at this point. Yeah, they kept moving that goalpost. What didn't they say it was like 65% for herd immunity at first, and then now it's 75, now it's 85.
Yeah.
Where do we stop?
And you know, they went from like, okay, like we just need to make sure that like 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? Like we need to make sure the hospitals aren't overwhelmed, because like with COVID, for the most part, like, and I know people still die from it, it's still a terrible thing, but for the most part, if you have a hospital bed available to you, like is very likely that you'll survive if you get a severe case of COVID, which is, you know, only like 5% of the time. It's not like a huge percent of the time, but if you have a hospital bed, sure. Hashtag jab beef.
We got to put that up there. I love it, man.
So again, you know, like, but they moved the goalpost to say like, okay, now we got to make sure like no one gets COVID ever. Like, no, that's not how it like, because this is an endemic disease now. Like, we cannot make sure that there's no COVID ever. Like, it is here, so we have to like still carry on as a functional society, knowing that this is going to be a risk that's out there. Like flu is a risk, you know, like which yeah, we like, okay, so just take the precautions that you want. And for me, I'm like, all right, if that means that you want to go and volunteer to wear an N95 mask all around, well, that's your business. Do your thing. I don't care. You know, or like you want the vaccine, not want the vaccine. Like at a certain point, we have to say like, hey, this is getting kind of ridiculous. You're moving the goalposts. And it's funny, like even like in the local area, just like local Democrats are like, hey guys, like, what are we even talking about anymore? Like that's we need to kind of get a grip on reality and go back to some semblance of normal life, or at least set a reasonable marker for when we do that, because you can't just keep moving the goalposts and restricting people's liberty and expect people to like go along with it forever. Like, it's not just the libertarians who are mad anymore. It's a lot of folks.
I mean, we've already taken care of our elderly and the weak for the most part. You know, now with the kids getting vaccinated, they had like almost less than zero death rate when a kid got sick. It was like super minute.
It is.
And we went from save your grandma to save your child. And the children if they even get it, a lot of them barely get any symptoms. Yeah. So why are we pushing it down their throats and masking them all day, every day?
Yeah. And again, like it does happen. There's actually a kid at my son's daycare got COVID, unfortunately, a baby, and hopefully that baby's fine. So it does happen. But, you know, like how rare is that and how severe is that in most cases? You know,
I mean, kids eat dirt. So Like, they've
Oh,
got
yeah,
better
no.
immunity than most of us.
Exactly. All
So-
sorts of stuff.
So we got a comment. I'm presuming it's from William, so we got to give it. We got to put it right to the top of the list. This statement from the liberal tradition recognizes that you do not have any absolute right from risk, and I always lived my life like I assume the risk of climbing on a ladder 15 times a day. I assume the risk of getting behind my car. Like, so what happened to this assumption of risk doctrine? And was it 9/11? Is that what did it? Is that what did away with the government wants to protect us and be our mommy and our daddy and keep us clean and free from trouble? Oh, it's a
You
general
take this
question.
one
Just
first.
jump in, fellas.
I feel like I've talked too much.
I
I
think
feel
you're
like that
doing
was a
great.
rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Yes, they want to be our mommy and daddy.
It answered itself. It answered itself. That's true.
Yeah. And well, like I posted this question before, like, do you have the right to put someone else at risk, right? Like, I think there's a certain level of like activity that you can do that exposes others to risk that like is worth for the government to step in, right? And the classic example, like, do you have the right to swing your arms wildly on a crowded street, even if you don't strike someone? Is that putting someone at enough risk where it's worthwhile for people to intervene or even the state to intervene? I don't know. And that's, I think the liberal tradition allows for a lot more of that, especially when the risk is like to yourself, right?
Yeah.
The tough part is, when you put that risk on others. So again, I think there's, some discussion to be had about like, especially when COVID first came out, like about, how much risk can you put others at, by exposing them to COVID. All right. But again, we've learned so much more about how you can protect yourself and how you can protect others. And like, we need to take the information that we've learned at this point and go back to living in a free society.
It seems like a reasonable request to me. I don't know. Like the guys, we're coming up on an hour. I think that's probably enough for everybody out there. What I'm doing today is I'm going to the cornhole tournament to raise money for friends. These young men who like their dad died within the last year and a half. Their mom is now incapacitated due to a serious medical injury. Like, guys, it's serious medical injury. I think I want to respect their privacy a little as much as I can, but it's a serious event, and so having fun. The boys themselves will probably be there. We're going to raise some money for these guys. I think, that's something that we can do. Amy, you got any closing words? You got to join earlier next time. I know I'm a last minute guy. It's all my fault, but I want you on the show more often.
All right.
Yeah.
Nothing special. I got no closing words.
You're going to the Moms for Liberty thing.
Yeah, I'm doing the Moms for Liberty thing
brother.
today. There's always stuff to do. And check out the GoFundMes that are flying across your Facebook feed and stuff like that, and give them a read once in a while. Look at what people are doing for each other.
I agree.
Yeah.
Kevin Wilson, let's pump our radio show. Let's pump each other. Let's sell some stuff. Closing words.
Yeah, and I mean, keep listening to our radio show too, A Free Solution. You got me on Mondays, Wednesdays, occasionally I'll be on with Andrew Hollister. Tuesdays, Larry Sharp. Thursdays, you, Tim.
Yes, sir.
And then Friday, both of us are Fake News Friday, which is always a fun episode.
We're going to pre-record it again because we had a blast. And what we'll do is we'll take calls from our friends live while we're doing the show from the internet. That way,
that's, I was gonna say, that's what we ought to do. We'll pre-record it, so like the audio will go out over the radio, but like we'll do it live, like we'll do a live stream. So maybe we'll Tim and I got to discuss it. We're gonna do something like maybe Thursday nights from now on, so our listeners can participate, because we love when people are commenting in and being part of the discussion.
it really kind of makes it just that much more fun. We had a lot of great comments. We had Ryan Bradford out there. Guys, I love that guy, man. He's funny. He's aggressive. He's like a redneck libertarian just like me. I love this stuff, man. I love us getting together and having these conversations. And guys, I see the happy birthday thing there. And this is my I got this as a present. I am going to be warm and looking good out building that solar field. Look at this stuff. Look at this stuff.
Looks
guys.
nice.
Yeah, my wife loves
Happy
me.
birthday, Tim.
Thanks, guys.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Have a great week. Next weekend, Jonathan Howe, maybe Jose Pio. That he's a Democrat, anti-mandate Democrat.
Oh,
We
yeah,
gotta at least
no,
talk to that guy.
Jose is super because he's a city councilman in Rochester. Yeah, interesting guy. And I've had him on the show before. Actually, talk about like dirt bikes and talk about other stuff. But yeah, no, I'll definitely listen in on that one.
Was he for like Bill de Blasio for bulldozing dirt bikes into the ground if he catches people with them?
No, so like,
Good.
It's more like, okay, for a while, and you can go back to archives, listen to the show. It was wild here in the city of Rochester. People like just blowing through neighborhoods all over, sidewalks, front lawns, parks where kids are playing and stuff. And he was like, all right, like, so we need to do something about this. The progressives want to just like build a dirt bike park and spend a bunch of money doing that. And he was kind of like, can't private organizations just do that? Like, if there's a need for it, why does this city need to pay for it? It's like, that's fine. Just like, why do we need to pay for it?
Yeah. Wow. You know what? He doesn't sound like a Democrat to me at all. I'll be honest with you. Like I love
Yeah.
him. I think he's great. He says a lot of cool stuff. And I want to talk to him some more. Like we interact a little bit on our Facebook pages. So I want to talk to that guy some more. Amy, thanks for everything you're doing. Keep up the good work. We're going to have you on again, maybe next week if you want to come on with these guys. Kevin, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And guys, it's Coffee and Freedom. We all had coffee. We got to work on the freedom part, folks. Have a good day.
Have a good one.